Let's take a deep breath and move to item 18.2 on the agenda, the curbside waste diversion policy. We will start with a referral motion from Councillor Kelly, which is a procedural motion. So we'll deal with it first. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to skip the first whereas because it takes too much time and it's not all that relevant. So whereas the recommended tag and bag limits are complicated, inequitable, and punitive for segments of the population because of the exemptions and caveats that would be required to run a citywide program of this nature. And whereas 20% of the waste comes from multi-residential units, which are not included in the recommended curbside waste diversion policy. And whereas in 2019, the city permitted plastics to be added to the green bin program, the most significant amendment to the policy in 7 years, because of concerns about the cleanliness of the bins, and diversion was only increased by 3% as a result. Whereas city staff have identified that the majority of diverted waste should be diverted through the green bin program. And whereas the city has not engaged in a large-scale comprehensive education campaign since the introduction of the green bin program in 2010. Whereas the recommended partial pay-as-you-throw program involves significant changes and alterations to solid waste planning for a large, diverse metropolitan area. And this program is being presented in Q2 2023, while the solid waste master plan is considered by City Council in Q4 2023. Therefore, be it resolved that the city refer the curbside waste diversion policy report back to staff and direct staff to undertake the following activities prior to Q4 2023 and include associated findings, options, and recommendations in a revised report to be considered by the committee and council the same meeting as the solid waste master plan. Number one, conduct and provide the results of further public consultation of any proposed amendments to the residential curbside collection policy that would include tag and bag limits, including the limits proposed in the original staff report. Number two, continue to investigate opportunities to enhance waste diversion in multi-residential properties as per the council approved multi-residential waste diversion strategy as part of the solid waste master plan. Number three, develop recommendations for a comprehensive education campaign about the need for further diversion, emphasizing the cost of inaction and the important role we all play in reducing waste and extending the life of our municipal landfill to ensure that residents have the knowledge and the tools to divert waste, including the appropriate bins. And number four, investigate and provide options for educational opportunities to encourage compliance with waste diversion and bring forward proposed mechanisms to move from encouragement to enforcement by 2026. So first of all, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm late to the party on this one for sure. I admit that. I don't like last minute motions. And sorry, can I speak to the motion now? Okay. Sorry. I know that there's been some great work done and under your leadership, Mary, you facilitated conversation. People have come to a compromise. I simply don't agree with it and wanted to propose a solution rather than come here today and oppose the solutions that had been presented. So the other thing I want to make clear is that I was an early adopter of the green bin program. I'm a huge supporter of it. It pains me to put organics in the garbage, which I do in the green bin because we don't have a green bin option in there, I don't think. But I did this because I care and I truly want to be part of the solution and understand that as a resident, I play an important role in diverting waste. And I think what my motion seeks to do is help foster a climate in which all residents want to be part of the solution and buy into diversion programs because it's the right thing to do for our city now, as well as future generations, not because they're forced to conform to a particular limit or buy tags. I firmly believe the approach outlined in my motion is more equitable in its application than tags or a bag limit and does not treat the family of 8 the same as the family of 2. I believe that a firm limit will ensure that the concerns about illegal dumping are realized, which will certainly affect rural wards like mine. In November 2021, the City of Ottawa published the findings of its survey on curbside waste diversion. And on page 46 of the report on that survey findings shows the top risk identified by 87% of respondents was illegal dumping. A firm limit with no option for additional items, it simply ignores those concerns. This report also admits in section 6, page 25, that firm item limits, and I quote, could create difficulties for some residents to deal with excess garbage that cannot be avoided, donated for use, or diverted. So I pose the question to my colleagues once again, what will people do with the fourth item, bag or bin? On page 23 of that same report in section 5.6, it states many residents stress the need to better educate residents on how to reduce and further divert waste. I couldn't agree more. And I don't recall a time since the green bin program was introduced where a large scale and comprehensive education campaign has been undertaken. I came across a pamphlet in my office. I had one in my office that described what went in the green bin. I went over to our client service center, which I'll say is open 1 day a week. Couldn't find anything over there. I decided to do Google waste collection in Ottawa. It took me 4 specific clicks to get through to the Waste Explorer. And if you were a resident that didn't know what the Waste Explorer was, it would take time to finish. My apologies, Mayor, I'll wrap up. I think we're putting the cart before the horse by implementing sweeping changes in advance of the master plan being presented for consideration in Q4. What is the harm in deferring this until further review of the master plan is presented? So first of all, I'm not going to support either of these motions because I don't think either of them are the right path forward for our city. And I think what bothers me most about this debate is that as a council, we seem to have decided that we have 2 options. And to be honest, I think many of my colleagues have decided to support this limit because supporting tags is politically unpopular. And I think that has left us with very few options to explore as a city. And it makes me sad that we can't continue this conversation and create better policies for the city that work for the greatest number of constituents. I do have a couple of questions for staff in terms of the 3-bag limit proposal. Do we currently have a limit on the number of items that we can place at the curb?
For you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct, Councillor. The current item limit is 6 items.
Okay. And can you explain how that is enforced?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as it exists today, that limit is not actively enforced.
Okay. And would that be the same plan for a 3-bag limit, or is there also a additional plan for further enforcement as part of the 3-bag plan?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the intent would be, as per staff's original recommendation, that we would be coming back to members of council with an evidence-based enforcement strategy. But the intent, in order for the policy to be effective, that industry best practice is to have an enforced bag limit.
And do you think if we enforce the current 6-bag limit, that would have had an appreciable difference on how much waste goes to our landfill?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in terms of what we're seeing, I'll just bring us back to that set out study data. And as it exists today, we have very close to 100% of residents that are already setting out at or below that limit. So it may have had a marginal impact, but I would say not as significantly, just given where residents are today.
Okay. And my final question is, as part of the solid waste master plan, have you been exploring options in terms of enforcing a program where organics are not allowed in the garbage?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as it exists today under the solid waste bylaw, there is a provision for mandated requirement for source separation. So that includes recyclables as well as organics. So it's a provision that exists today.
So it already exists.
That's correct.
Is that enforced?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is not currently enforced. And one of, as we were developing the policy recommendations as part of this project, one of the options that was considered is the introduction of a clear bag program, which would allow it to be much more easily enforced.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answers to the questions. And for me, that's an indication that we haven't done all we can as a city with the current programs that we have in place to encourage people to divert waste. And I think we should do a lot more of that before moving on with the programs that are being proposed here today. Thank you.